Toma. My name is Robert Rivera. We are representing the Chicago Ridge Library. We are interviewing Robert Jensen on Thursday, June 21st at the Chicago Ridge Public Library. This interview is being conducted as part of the Project Next Generation grant for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress and the Illinois Veterans History Project. Funding for the Project Next Generation grant was awarded by the Illinois State Library, a department of the Office of Secretary of State, using funds provided by the U.S. Institute of Museum and Library Services under the provisions of the Library Services and Technology Act, LSTA. Can you please provide your full name?
Robert Charles Jensen.
What is your date of birth?
September 6, 1955.
Where were you born?
South side of Chicago.
Who were your parents?
My father was Charles Jensen. My mother was Dorothy Jensen.
Were your parents in the military?
No.
What were their occupations?
My dad was a factory worker, painted water heaters. And my mother, she was a telephone communications person. She telephone solicitor. She'd solicit for carpeting or any other thing that they were selling at the time. Plus, she also worked as a waitress for a few years.
What schools and colleges did you attend?
Well, I went to St. Christina's in Mount Greenwood, went to Morgan Park High School, and then I went into the Army right after that. After the Army, I went into college and went to Saul Ross State University in 1993.
Did you work before joining the service?
Yeah, I worked some small jobs, worked as a vendor in a little sausage shop down here in Mount Greenwood.
What year did you enter the service?
1973. And then again, I re-entered the military in 1978.
How old were you when you started serving?
I was 17 years, 2 years before my 18th birthday.
Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I had a draft card. It was issued to me 2 weeks after I joined the Army. I was waiting for them to call me, but they didn't. Now, I volunteered for the first 3 years of military service.
How many years were you initially signed up to serve?
Initially, it was 3 years.
How long did you actually serve?
I actually served 17 years, 3 months, and 14 days, plus a year and a half of active reserves.
What branch of service did you serve with?
I served with the United States Army Military Police Corps.
Why did you choose that specific branch?
I always wanted to be a police officer, and at 18 years old, there's not too many police departments that hire 18-year-olds.
What was the highest rank that you held?
I held the rank that I'm currently wearing, the Staff Sergeant rank, E6.
How did it feel when you started your service experience?
It was nervous at first, and then you learned how to adapt to the military, because the military is a totally different thing than what you're used to. You're not used to being told every morning when to get up, what to wear, how to wear it. I learned how to shave in the Army. One day I went to shave, and I ended up with more toilet paper on my face trying to shave than I did end up with skin.
How did you adapt to military life?
Oh, very, very quickly. You either adapt or you're gone. In those days, there was plenty of volunteers and plenty of service members. If you didn't cut the mustard or didn't make the grade, you were out.
Where did you attend basic training?
I attended basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri when I first went in the military. When I went back in, I didn't have to go back through basic training. I'd already been through basic training, so they just assigned me to a station.
Where were you stationed?
In Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, I took basic training in 1973. In 74, I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia, and went to MP school. After that, I went to Torii Station, Okinawa, and near Japan. I was stationed there for about 21 months, and then I came back to the United States for my last 6 months of that hitch of service at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, 101st Airborne Division. And then in 76 to 78, I was United States Army Reserve out at O'Hare Field. Every week, 1 weekend a month, and 2 weeks during the summer, I'd do training. And when going up to Camp McCoy during the 2 weeks of summer training, working as an MP, showing new guys how to be an MP in the reserves. In 1978, I became an MP at Fort Hood, Texas. I went active duty. I worked my patrol vehicle was a Jeep. Did actual police work using an MP Jeep, and also I trained soldiers how to be military policemen by working cases with them, showing them paperwork, and continued to work police duties. And then in 1979, I got stationed in Panama for 3 years. Originally, it was a year tour, and then I got married, found my wife and married her then, and had a little one. In 1982, I came back to the States, to Redstone Arsenal, Alabama, spent a year there. And then in 1984, I went to Frankfurt, Germany for 3 years, and was there during the Red Brigade's terrorist attacks, and where they blew a bomb off into the Frankfurt Shopping Center. I was patrol supervisor that day. I was a sergeant back then. And then in 87, I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and was stationed as permanent party regular military police on that installation. Worked gates and worked patrol and worked as patrol supervisor there. In 1988, I re-enlisted for Panama, the country of Panama again. I'd already been there one tour already. I re-enlisted because of the conflict that was going on there. There was an uprising over a dictator there. In 1989, in December, we went into combat in Panama. And I was a combat squad leader. Had 3 vehicles, 10 soldiers under me. And we had 3 machine guns, and I carried an M16 rifle with a grenade launcher, a rifle, a pistol, and a shotgun. And we went into combat in Panama. We were in a combat zone for over 90 days. In 1992, I was discharged from the military. I was part of the reduction in force where George Bush Sr. cut the military back. So in 1992, I got out of the military, was unable to complete my 20 years of service. But I went ahead and went to college after that. And I'll let you continue with the questions.
How long did you have to train per day?
Well, in military police, we would do in basic training. We spent long days. We start at 5 in the morning and finish at 10 o'clock at night. 10 o'clock lights out. 5 o'clock, or whenever the drill sergeant decided we were getting up, we got up, and we'd have different types of training, from basic combat skills to learning how to be a soldier, learning about the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is the laws that govern the United States military, learning policy and procedures for the Army.
What were the living conditions like?
You like open bay living, it's great. You live in a room about the size of this one here with bunks on both sides, and we had wall lockers. We didn't have the foot lockers. We had a wall locker, and it had to be according to military regulations. Everything folded and rolled or hung up correctly. I got 2 or 3 calls into my family. You don't have much time when you're trying to get everything done that needs to be done in the barracks. Go ahead. Food, and what you were able to taste of it, as you guys have heard from some of the other veterans. The food was pretty good, but most of the time you didn't get a chance to really enjoy it in basic training. It was a matter of getting it done and getting done and getting back to training. And when I was working as a military policeman, I'd go to the mess hall or a dining facility, and they'd call me out on a case. There went lunch. You'd have to leave it behind and go to work.
Were you able to have a social life?
Oh yeah, we would go to movies and do stuff at different military bases, went horseback riding, and enjoyed the different things that were available on the post.
What types of things did you do for fun?
Oh, hunting, fishing. I enjoy, and those are things that I could do in the military. While I was stationed in Fort Leonard Wood, I'd go out in a bass boat and go fishing for a couple hours on my days off.
Were you stationed after basic training?
Yeah, I was stationed in Panama and Okinawa, and then I continued on with my military.
Where were your living conditions different than basic training?
Yeah. After basic training, I actually lived in a house with my wife and daughter. We were issued housing. When, if necessary, I could get furniture from the base, and they would give me they'd give me any furniture I needed. Most of the time, they provided a refrigerator, a stove, and air conditioning in the quarters, air conditioning and heating.
Was the food different at your base?
Well, when I got to permanent bases, food was better and different. I got stationed at one of the places where the generals ate, so where the generals eat, everybody eats good.
Do you have any basic training stories you would like to share?
Certainly. Drill sergeant wanted the barracks cleaned up. The barracks weren't looking so good. So my platoon guy, the sergeant in charge of the barracks, said, "Oh, we got to get working on these barracks. The drill sergeant's going to come in." His name was Lipscomb, but they called him Thunder Drill. He liked to blow a whistle. He'd blow the whistle once and you get in the top half of a push-up position. Blow it again, you go to the position of attention. You do that until he got tired. Well, they said, "Oh yeah, Thunder Drill's going to come in here and we're going to be doing Thunder Drill all night long." Well, Thunder Drill happened to step in about the same time that soldier said that, and the drill sergeant said, "Wait a second, you said that? No problem." He had that sergeant doing Thunder Drill for 5 minutes. He said, "Oh, you guys all standing around watching him? Nah, you all get to do it too." So we did it there for about 15, 20 minutes until the drill sergeant got tired. Then we got the barracks cleaned up.
When you finished basic training, what position did you hold?
I was a regular soldier with a rank of PFC, Private First Class. I went in as a PFC, I came out as a PFC, Private First Class.
What kind of things did you do having that position?
Well, as a private, I got to do whatever the sergeant wanted done. If the commander wanted something done, he'd put it down to the sergeant would tell the private, and the private get it done. We worked, as a private, I learned how to stand guard mount. Guard mount is where every day before you go to work as a policeman, you get inspected. They inspect you from head to toe, make sure all your equipment's right. All your stuff is clean. Your handcuffs are ready for work. If you had to pull them, they were cleaned and oiled and ready to roll. Your weapon was cleaned and oiled, and you made sure that your weapon was always good to go. Handcuffs, club, everything. We used to carry an MP club. So and that was before. And then you check your vehicle, make sure it was right, because you didn't want to drive in a vehicle that didn't work.
Did you receive any specialized training for that position?
Yeah, I went to a primary leadership course, which was learned how to be a sergeant, and then I went to NCO, the Sergeant's Academy, and then I also went to Military Police Investigator School and was a military police investigator. Worked like a detective.
Do you feel that you received enough training?
Oh yeah, there was plenty of training to be done, and we did a lot of it.
What were the rules in the military?
Well, the Uniform Code of Military Justice was what governed us. Policy and procedures were what we had to obey as well. If you followed policy and procedures put out by the commanders and followed the Uniform Code of Military Justice, you were able to do your job very good. If you didn't, you ended up with disciplinary action, which could be anything from a verbal reprimand to losing money. Or go to jail.
Did you serve in any wars?
Yes, I served in combat in Panama. The invasion of Panama, the first night out, we took fire.
How many wars did you serve in?
Well, I was in during Vietnam era, and the second one I went into I actually served in combat, was in Panama.
Where were you stationary during wartime?
During wartime, it was in Panama. We served 15 miles to 50 miles outside of Panama City in rural areas. We were mopping up after the Panamanian Defense Forces. We had 14,000 troops come in. There was 12,000 of us on the ground when we started in the conflict, and 14,000 troops came in. We had 5,000 helicopters on the ground. Aircraft was coming in every 30 to 60 seconds.
Were you in the front lines or back lines?
We were in the front lines of the military aggression. We had bullets flying at us for the first 3 or 4 nights straight.
Did you have a lot of equipment to carry?
Well, our vehicle carried most of it, but we still had our load-bearing equipment, which is the stuff we carried on our person, which included a flashlight, canteens, ammo pouches, and the weapon.
How heavy was all of your equipment that you had to carry?
Oh, I'd say anywhere from 50 to 60 pounds, plus the 6-pound rifle.
Did you wear any protective gear?
Yeah, we also carried a protective mask that we had on our left leg, and it was attached, so if we needed it, we could just open it up and put it on. We also had NBC gear, which is nuclear, biological, chemical gear, which you wore in case of a chemical attack.
What was the mask for?
The mask was for gas, tear gas, any kind of biological agent.
What job did you have during wartime?
Combat squad leader, which included anything that needed to be done in order to make sure that we were combat ready.
What were your living conditions like during wartime?
During wartime, we slept on a cot the first night out. There was thunder everywhere and there wasn't a cloud in the sky. The second and third night, we found an old housing unit that wasn't occupied. We put our cots up in there. Down in Sallyport, they delivered a pallet of beer.
How was the food during wartime?
It was great most of the time because you had one hot meal a day. First sergeant and sergeant major made sure you did. Those were the ranking sergeants. Their job was to make sure we had beans and bullets. They would bring the meal around in a truck, back of a big open bed truck, and they had the little Meramite containers, the little cylinders with the hot food in it. That's how you got your hot food. And other than that, we were eating MREs, meals ready to eat. Back when I first started in the Army, they had C rations, little cans.
Did you eat any local foods?
Oh yeah. We were lucky enough to where we were stationed in town areas, and we'd go into a little town, go into a little store they call them bodegas, which was a little cantina, little store. Couldn't get alcoholic beverages, but we were able to get a little bit of food samples.
Can you explain what your surroundings were like?
Surroundings? It was jungle. We were on the main highways, and there was trails, and then there was jungle. Jungle, very dense jungle, very hard to get through.
What was the weather like where you were stationed?
It was about 100 degrees with 100-degree humidity, very hot, and then during rainy season, it rained for 3 months straight. Tropical climate.
How did you feel while you were serving?
I felt very proud. In fact, my brother-in-law wrote me a letter when I was right around Christmas time, informing me that I was the local hero for his high school, because I was serving in combat fighting Noriega, who was the dictator at the time that we were taking down.
Were you given any shots, vaccines to protect you from diseases, animals, or bug bites?
Yeah, the biggest one, when you go into basic training, you get something like 30 shots. You go to a line, and they have these immunization guns that they hit you with on both arms as you're going down the road, going down in between the tables. And then if you're going overseas, you get about a half a dozen more shots to make sure that you're protected against malaria or any other stuff that was available in Panama.
Did those shots hurt?
Oh, yeah. You got about 3 days of doing push-ups just to help your muscles go back to normal.
How did you stay in contact with family and friends back home during wartime?
During wartime, well, that was before cell phones. We used a radio phone where you call up and you say over after each conversation. That was how I was. Otherwise, the phone calls would cost somewhere around $100 to $200 for just a 3 or 4 minute phone call.
Were you able to travel around when you had downtime?
Oh yeah. In Panama, I got to see the interior of Panama, go to bullfights and stuff like that. It was kind of neat.
Did you get to see any sights?
Oh yeah, I got to see Panama City. I was able to tour the city and also see different sites in Panama. In Germany, I got to tour the castles and enjoy the scenic areas there.
Was there anything that stood out about the culture or countryside?
Oh, they were friendly people. On a majority, most of the places I worked, the soldiers were always welcome.
If you were in a tropical country where there were lots of bugs, did you have any bug repellent or nets to protect you?
Oh yeah. See, we'd sleep in a hammock in the jungle, and you put a mosquito net over your bunk. Plus, you also had bug spray. The Army issues you a little bottle of bug repellent, and it says bug repellent on it. Can't miss.
How well did the net protect you?
Pretty good. You always love that stuff. Don't know what it causes, what causes it had afterwards, but it was always good at the time.
What did you do for recreation while you were off duty?
No, I'd go to the beach. There was a whole beach right along the Isthmus of Panama, and go out to the beach or just to do the stuff that I normally did. You can go fishing in the lakes and stuff like that. So I got a chance to do that.
How did you deal with the different language and culture?
Learned it or didn't speak it. And when I first got to Panama, I learned a little bit of Spanish. Then I married a Panamanian. I learned a whole lot of Spanish. In Germany, I picked up the language within a couple months because I was processing cases with the German police, so I had to learn their language as well.
Were you given any training or phrases to help you communicate with the local people?
Oh yes, I got 2 or 3 sheets of phrases. Then you'd forget to bring the sheet with you, and you're trying to figure out what was on the sheet. Yeah, they gave us phrase sheets to work with.
Did any of the local citizens work on base where you were stationed?
Yeah, in Panama we had Panamanians helping with a lot of the office work and stuff. And in Germany, I worked with the German police. They had an office for a German police interpreter in our MP station, and they helped to translate all the reports that the German police were having and anything that was going on with the German police.
Do you have any stories you would like to share?
Yeah, in Panama, in Japan, in Okinawa, there was Okinawa is an island 60 by 12 miles wide, and one of the Japanese policemen showed up at my gate one day, and he don't carry a weapon. In Japan, in Okinawa, they don't carry a weapon. I understood why when he got out of his vehicle and stretched. He put his foot right up next to his head, straight up, and put it back down again. I said, I ain't messing with this guy. He was only about 5'2", and he got out of his vehicle. There's definitely no doubt what he knew.
How did you adapt to the currency?
Well, in 3 different countries, there was 3 different types of currency. In Okinawa, they used the Japanese yen. So it was about 300 yen to $1, so you had to figure that out if you wanted to use it on the economy. And then in Germany, they had the Deutschmark, which later became the euro. And when I was there, the Deutschmark was very low or very high. And the amount of currency you could use against the dollar is what the difference is in currency.
How did you return home?
I flew 17 hours on a flight from Germany. Okinawa was another 17-hour flight the other way. In Panama, it's a 4-hour flight from Panama to Miami. And then I flew home.
Who greeted you when you returned home?
My family was there at the airport. My dad always showed up whenever I came home. My mom would always be at home and have dinner ready. One year she kept the Christmas tree up 30 days past the New Year's because she wanted to make sure I got to see Christmas.
How did you readjust to civilian life after serving?
Oh, after being in a combat zone, I came home for about 45 days. And when I first got home, if a vehicle backfired, I took cover. I was very anxious about my surroundings, where I was and where I was at when I first got home.
Did you return to the job you left when you were discharged?
No, I worked at a Polish. I didn't serve Polish sausage sandwiches no more. When I got out, I worked in security and eventually worked in corrections and retired from corrections.
Did any of your siblings serve in the military?
No, my brothers and sisters did not. They supported me throughout my military career, and they understood when I wasn't there for the weddings, the birthdays, and all the other anniversaries and stuff because I was stationed overseas at that particular time. My uncles and cousins served in the military. My uncle served, I had three uncles serve in World War II. One of them was in the Battle of the Bulge. The other ones, one was stationed in Alaska. Another uncle served on a ship during the Korean War.
Can you recall your instructors?
Yeah, there was three drill sergeants that I'll never forget. One was Lipscomb, the one who thunder drill. The other one was Drill Sergeant McDonald, who taught us how to be military, taught us the military, showed us basic training and helped us there. And then Drill Sergeant Mungie was a drill sergeant in MP school, taught us how to be police officers.
What did your uniforms look like?
Well, I'm wearing one of them. The fatigue uniform or the combat uniform, that's what we wore in combat. And then there's a pair of pants that camouflage just like them. The hat and helmets, we wore there was a steel pot back in Vietnam era, and then the Army in 1989 changed over to the Kevlar helmet, which is a better helmet. I know because my helmet took a bullet the first night in combat, and it bounced right off. So the Kevlar does make a difference. The flak jackets that we were issued worked real well. And the Army changed their uniforms. I came in, they were this color uniform, the green colors to start with. And then in the 80s, they changed over to the camouflage uniforms. Because you used to have, this uniform I had wasn't available in 1973 because the pants were available, but the shirt was a tan shirt. Then they changed it to this green shirt. And then they also got rid of a uniform. They used to have a uniform called the khaki uniform, which was a very stiff uniform. It was starched heavily. And then you had the winter uniforms. We were issued at one time a black raincoat with a liner, and then they gave you a gray wool coat. But the Army uniform has changed a little bit. The hats, they went from a service cap, which is over, I have one over there, it's a flat hat. Now they've gone to the beret. So the Army's changed its uniforms in the last 20 years. And see, I got out before they changed over to digital, the latest technological uniforms.
Is what you're wearing and all the other uniforms that you just described comfortable?
They are comfortable. I wouldn't wear them if they weren't. Now, when you first get issued a uniform, they issue them in basic training. They issued you uniforms that would eventually fit you. The boots, they always made sure it was the right size, but the uniform, shirts, and pants may have been a little big when you started, but when you, after eating a few meals in the Army, you're able to fill them out.
What gear were you provided for different weather conditions?
Well, we were issued long underwear when I was in Germany. They issued us tropical weight or the jungle fatigues when I was in Panama, which were a little bit lighter than the ones that I have over there, the cotton ones.
If your boots wore out, were you able to get new ones?
Yeah, first issue is issued to you, and after that you buy your stuff. Your bag is always, your duffel bag as they called it, was maintained by you after your first military service. Now, to change the patch, they change the patch for you. They'd even have somebody come out and sew them on for you. But if as far as the uniforms go, well, they did change the uniforms across the board. They issued them. But if they didn't change them across the board and your uniform wore out, you bought a new one.
Did you carry a canteen of water?
Most of the time I did.
What did you do if you ran out of water?
Yeah, there's always a water source, either a water buffalo. Now, water buffalo is not something that big old brown animal. It is a big container of water. It's potable water, drinkable water. And we had them with us.
How did you get paid?
Well, it used to be in a pay line. You used to go and see a pay officer, a lieutenant or a captain would come by with the pay. And everybody be in a long line, and you get your money. All $76 of it. When I first went in, it was about $88. And as I was in a little while, it got to be about $23,000 a year. So it wasn't bad.
Did you get paid each week?
No, bi-weekly. For the longest time, we got paid once a month, and then the Army decided after years and years that they would finally pay twice a month. So you could be broke twice a month.
Were you able to spend the money off base, or did you send it home?
Well, while I was overseas, I did send some money home, and then I also put some money in the savings bonds, and eventually, and then I would be able to spend some money locally as well, you know, for the stuff you didn't have, like your toothpaste and all that good stuff, the hygiene stuff.
Was the money you got paid enough to live on?
Oh, yeah. At first it wasn't, but you learned.
Did you encounter any animals?
Yeah, there was one that was called a sloth. I got to meet one up close and personal. He decided to hang around on a banister of an apartment, and the MPs got called to take care of it. We did. We put him on our riot baton and carried him back to the jungle. This other lady called and said she had a snake at her back door. Yep, we got the snake, put it in a bucket, and took it back to the jungle.
Did you encounter any domestic animals?
Domestic animals. There was always dogs. We worked with canine quite a bit. Just like any civilian police department, the military has a canine unit. And one night we put 2 subjects on the back of a patrol vehicles. Well, they were standard shift vehicles. We forgot that and forgot to set the emergency brake. And the dogs were stationed right on their back ends. If they moved, the dogs would bite. Well, the vehicle started inching forward, and these guys were hanging on to the back end of the vehicle and were scared that they were about to get bit. And they let us know about it real quick, and we moved the dogs and secured the vehicles.
Did you have a pet?
I had a couple dogs over the years. Full-size German Shepherds, what I like to work with.
Can you describe how they looked?
Yeah, about 2 years old and a pain in the neck.
Where were you when the war ended?
I was in Panama when the war ended, and I was part of the rebuilding of Panama City, working with training the new police department, which it was helping being trained by the Special Forces.
What were your experiences at the end of the war, or the end of your military service?
The experiences? Well, I went ahead and had to readapt to civilian life, something I hadn't done in years. So it was a new experience for me to get out of the military and find a home and a job and start over again.
Do you have any personal reflections that you would like to add?
I really enjoyed my military career and enjoyed working with the soldiers I worked with and working with the people that I worked with over the years.
Did you receive any medals?
Yes, I received 3 Army Commendation Medals, 3 Army Achievement Medals, 5 Good Conduct Medals, Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, and then the service ribbons.
Did you marry?
I got married in 1980.
Before or after?
It was before I went to war, but I was in the military at the time. I spent 10 years living as a single soldier in the barracks.
Did you have any children?
I have one daughter, and she's married and has kids now. She lives in Austin, Texas.
Grandchildren?
I have 3 grandchildren. 1, 3, and 7. 2 girls and a guy.
Do you have any friends when you were serving?
Oh yeah, we hung out together. I got pictures of me and my buddies when we hang out in the barracks, and then I'd have friends that we get together at Christmas or the holidays. They'd come over to my house as a staff sergeant. I'd welcome my whole squad come over to the house, and we'd have a party at my house.
Did you keep in contact with any veterans who served while you did?
Yeah, I have 3 buddies of mine that I keep in contact with. There's a few others that I hear about and check on occasionally. Guys who I served with in Okinawa, Panama, and Germany.
What did you learn from your time in the service?
I learned how to be a soldier. I learned to grow up real quick because I was responsible for myself and any of the soldiers I was with.
Do you have any photos or objects still as memories?
Yes, I brought a few with me. You're all welcome to take a look, and I'll explain any of the objects that are involved there.
Are you a member of any veteran organization? If so, which one?
I belong to the American Legion and an active member. I worked with the American Legion in Pecos, Texas, to where us veterans would get together and do funeral detail for any deceased veterans.
How do you think the military now compares to when you served?
That's a new military. It's called the brown boot. It's called the tan boot army now. We used to have the black boot, the shiny boots, the shiny shoes. But it's a changed army. It's digital, it's electronic, and it's the army of the future. I've been talking to a few of the old sergeants who served recently, and they tell me that it's a good military and everything's going well in the military.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view this interview?
Well, that you can have a good military career. You can improve yourself by working with and doing with the military.
Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should be adding to this interview?
Nothing at this time.
We'd like to thank you for serving and thank you for coming today and sharing your story with us. The many people that will see it in the future.
I thank you very much.